Good afternoon and welcome everybody. Today is October 22nd and the Board of Commissioners Workshop meeting is called to order at 2 p.m. Will the City Clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Black.
Present.
Vice Mayor Hodges.
Here.
Commissioner Weinstein.
Here.
Commissioner Andrews.
Whoop, here.
Commissioner Douther.
Present.
First item on the agenda is public comment. This is for anything that is not on the agenda. Once those topics come up, you'll be allowed to speak on them at that time. Your time is limited to 3 minutes. Please state your full name and address. And does anybody wish to speak at this time? Okay. Public comment is now closed. First item under topics for discussion is Attorney Helen Price paid invoice.
Yes, Madam Mayor, Commissioners, there's a policy decision that I'm looking for guidance from you all in reference to attorney's fees that are paid for by for our volunteers that work on the different advisory boards and staff. So I know there was a response in your packet that Ralph had sent originally in reference to not covering attorney's fees for staff or volunteers in our advisory capacity. So I just I never saw where that issue actually came up in front of the commission, and to me it's a policy decision that should be made by you. Ultimately, if that's the route you want to go, then we can put it on the agenda for a meeting and you can have an official vote. But I just wanted to talk about it in the workshop, so you can give me some direction on what you'd like to do in the future. Currently, what I'm doing is all attorneys' fees are being routed through the individuals' departments that might have received those services, so they can go through the bill, and then ultimately it comes through me before it goes to finance to be paid. So there is a procedure now that we're following, so we know everything that's being paid. Additionally, I'm signing every check that comes through the city, whereas before it was handled in finance, but I'm physically signing every check that goes through our office. So this way I know what's being paid.
So Mr. Daniels, is this on?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just curious about something, since this was not legally expressed in any other way other than what we have here, for us to go back in now and to reissue the check, or excuse me, to bring it back up to get the money back. That's not the intention here, correct?
My intention is have discussion on just what the policy should be in the future. And
okay.
If the commission wants to do other action, that's up to the commission. My direction I'm seeking is just what do we want to do about, a policy going into the future.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I have a comment. I've read all the information, the supporting information, and also Attorney Helen Price's memo of October the 19th. And in view of everything I read, an error was made in payment because, I think an error was made in payment because I don't think it's ever been the thought that the city should pay for volunteers' legal fees, consultations, whatever, if it is not if it's not in conjunction or connection with a specific item of that committee, okay? If it was not done under city authorization or whatever. So I'm of the feeling that I certainly don't want to set a precedent, and I think the only way to not set a precedent is to ask Helen Price to remit back the $2,280 to the city, and that we should either have something in our Board of Commissioners handbook, or maybe we really don't. I don't know if we need that or not. Maybe it just needs to be expressed some other way, but I don't think the precedent is to.
I feel like since we've already adjusted the check check has already gone out, correct?
Yes, gone
Okay,
out.
so the
I'm
check
sure-
has
I'm
already
assuming it's
gone
been
out.
cash because this all
It's
happened.
already gone, it's
Right.
gone. Okay, so it is gone, and that's it. We've had no indication up to this point as to what we're doing now with this check whatsoever. So I feel like at this point, like you said, as of September 30th, then we can implement what needs to be done then afterwards. Okay? No, I don't think we should go back and ask for the check back again. I feel like we didn't have anything in process at the time. There was nothing set up whatsoever. So I feel at this time the check should be paid out, let it go, it's over and done with, period, and let's move forward. And that's my impression of it.
I've got a email here dated March 6, 2019, from our city attorney to Jonathan Evans, John Hendricks, Clara, Ralph Brooks, and Karen, stating, for city human resources employment investigations, neither employees, citizens are prohibited to advisory boards, nor persons or persons filing complaints for the city are entitled to have legal counsel provided by the city for the purposes of city human resource employment investigations. And that went out in March, so it should not have gone through. That was from our attorney to our city clerk, to human resources, to Mr. Hendricks, and to our city manager at that time. So that should not have been paid. So I've got to agree with Debbie that this should be collected back. Thank you.
No, I mean, I think we got to look at precedent here, and Commissioner Weinstein brought it up earlier. The way I see this really isn't about Clara approving a payment or a check going out to Helen Palladino. It's really about a completely dysfunctional legal system that we have. You guys all saw the email, because we were all copied on it, from Helen Price to all of us about Attorney Salzman approving these expenses, okay? Now, I know Ralph isn't here today, but why don't we have a statement from Ralph whether or not that is a true statement? If one of our attorneys, since we have freaking 90 of them, if one of our attorneys approved a payment, then the payment is made and we move forward. But again, it's all about precedent right now. I mean, if you look at our charter, and John, I don't know where you pulled that from. If it's from an email, I wasn't on the board in March 6th, so I didn't get that. In our city charter, it basically says the city attorney shall act as legal advisor to and attorney for the city and all its officers and employees in matters arising out of their performance of their official duties from the city, for the city, okay? Well, I don't think now this is a question of whether Mr. Hendricks should have been afforded legal counsel, okay? He was doing city business. That's a definite yes. The big question is who ends up getting covered now? And that's what we really have to decide today, because this isn't about Helen's check. This is about who do we cover going forward. Now, if you think about it, we covered a lot of people here that weren't in the course of doing their business. We covered the fire chief, who the state of Florida said corruptly abused his position by stealing from the city. We covered all of his legal expenses, okay? That wasn't in the capacity of doing his job. Why did we cover him, okay? He was not only found guilty of corruption and abuse, he's also currently working in the city, and he's the second highest paid employee. Why are we not making a big deal about that? We also famously covered a former commissioner who was found guilty of assaulting and licking a former city manager. And was she licking his face during in her official capacity as a commissioner? No, she wasn't, okay? But we paid her legal expenses as well. And why did we do that? Why aren't we talking about that today, okay? This man was doing his job in his official capacity, okay? Now, we're questioning him on this, but I just, I don't even know what the status of this case is now, okay? We had an employee who wasn't even attending a meeting file a complaint against somebody on the board. She didn't see the meeting, she wasn't in the meeting, and all of a sudden, before the meeting was over and it wasn't live streamed, there was a complaint against Mr. Hendricks, okay? What I would like to see, I would like one of our charter officers to do an investigation of what exactly happened here. It doesn't seem to all go together, okay? We also have, what about in Clara's case, when Madam Mayor pushed her for her to get removed for not fitting in? The mayor got free legal advice from Ralph, but Clara had to defend her good name and had to go to an outside attorney, okay, to defend her name. Now, wait a minute. Let me reread from the charter. The city attorney shall act as legal advisor and attorney for the city and all of its officers and employees in matters arising out of performance of their official duties for the city. Was the city clerk not acting in her official duties as a city when she got called out on this and got her name slandered in the paper? Guys, this is what we need to be talking about. We don't need to be talking about a check to Helen Palladino. And, no disrespect, Commissioner Weinstein, but your request for opinion to the Attorney General and using public funds to send it, you got your legal advice from Ralph for free, who has also rendered his own completely asinine opinion in the case. But what if I'm out there now, and what if I want to seek legal counsel to defend my good name from you slandering me? Okay? I sure as heck can't use Ralph. Okay? He's already made his position on this. Okay? It really frustrates me that we go and we push forward these agendas, and there's really no backing from the past of what we've done before. Okay? I mean, I asked my fellow board members, what if your attorney who reports to you was conspiring behind your back to try to find ways to cause you harm? Okay? And let me tell you something, and I mean this sincerely. If it were one of you guys, regardless of our differing political views, I would have backed you and voted for his immediate dismissal. Okay? I deserve to have an impartial attorney as well representing me for the city just as much as you guys do. And I don't think that we have that here, but none of you even seem to think that was a big idea. We also, and I showed you guys this in the last meeting, Madam Mayor, in the contract that you signed with this particular attorney, okay, it says explicitly that he cannot go out and hire, and all due respect, Matt, he can't go out and hire Matt. He can't go out and hire any of the other legal attorneys that he's used and pay them without board approval. Have you guys ever approved any of the attorneys that he's used? Ever? It's our fiduciary responsibility to look at that stuff. We're paying out money. I just can't even believe that nobody makes a big deal about it. Nobody makes a big deal about it. So there's my position. Right now, okay, from now on, I think if you're hell-bent on keeping Ralph as the city attorney, we need to address these scenarios that I've talked about above, okay? That and no outside counsel from here on in can be approved or can start working for the city without approval from this board. It's in our charter, and it's our fiduciary responsibility. We need to start sticking to that kind of stuff, guys. This isn't agenda politics anymore. So that's my opinion on it.
Well, Madam Mayor, I think that what Commissioner Andrews is, I mean, that's why we're sitting up here talking about this, okay? I don't think what's been done in the past needs to really, I guess, be looked at all. We could sit and spin wheels for the rest of our lives on what certainly has happened. I think the important thing is that, excuse me, Commissioner Andrews, did you? No, I would say. I think that the important thing is to set a precedent here and to determine if we want to do this or not. And I think that we should not pay the $2,280, and we should ask for the money back and go on. It was an error, and it was a volunteer, and I don't know how the error happened, and I really don't care, I guess. I mean, I think it's important certainly to know, but I don't think an investigation or anything like that is warranted, particularly in this case. So I'm still of the agreement that we should ask the city manager to draft a letter and to send it to Attorney Palladino, Price, that we should send it to Price and hope to get the money back. I don't think we should carry it to a lawsuit, certainly, but I think that we should ask for it, because if we don't, it does set a precedent.
You know, I think with what the city manager said, we need to figure out what we're doing from this point forward. You know, we cannot hire, the city cannot afford to hire an attorney for every person. So let me use the case that we're talking about with Ms. Price. If the city pays for an attorney for Mr. Hendricks to sue the city or to sue Lacey, and then we should be paying Lacey's attorney's fees to fight that. Then we've got to have an attorney to represent the city, you know, and then every time something comes up, you know, we are hiring attorneys. We'll be hiring 1 million attorneys a year. In regards to if somebody's going to be fired, if we're going to fire the city manager or the city clerk or one of the people on the garbage truck out there, or any employee in between, you know, do we hire an attorney to fight for them to keep their job? That is not, we should not be doing that. You know, if they want to hire an attorney to fight for their case, then that's their business. That is not the city's business, and the city should not be paying someone to sue the city. I just think that is just totally wrong, and where do we stop? You know, because then we have to have an attorney for the city, we have to have an attorney for the city manager, we have to have an attorney for this person, we have to have an attorney for that person. You end up 6 or 7 attorneys for one case when somebody's charged for sexual harassment or whatever. It's just, you know, we have to say no. If you're doing your official duty, now if you're, you know, if I sit up here and I sexually harass somebody, that's not my official business. You know, if I'm doing my official business, being on this board, doing the city's business, yes, I think that people up here or whoever should be protected. But if I'm being sued because I sexually harassed somebody or did something that was wrong, then no, they shouldn't. You know, that's kind of my feeling on this whole thing. So I think from this point forward, no, we do not pay for somebody else's attorney. We do not cover, you know, because once we start, where does it end? And like Mr. Andrews has said, look at all the money we're spending on attorneys. If we allow that, we're going to quadruple or even 100 times what we're paying right now. I think it needs to stop.
If I may, Madam Mayor, real quick, do you mind?
Go ahead.
Just to help clarify, because I do work at multiple cities, and the common practice is you're covering the fees for the board members, including the commission members and the employees in their capacity, right? So let's say you guys make a decision, someone appeals, they're not only naming the city, they're probably naming the mayor as well. And that's an ideal situation for your city attorney to get involved. The reason why your city attorney has only been involved in certain capacities is from not only the appearance of a conflict of interest, but of a conflict of interest. So if he's representing the city's interest and there's a commissioner who is suing the city or a board member suing the city, he can't represent both sides because they have different interests, and that would be a conflict. However, it's completely normal to have your attorney fully vet all of this, and that's the practice that we do. And no harm towards Ralph in any way, but the charter says what the charter says. And if you think that there's going to be an appearance of a conflict or you're kind of pre-planning how this is going to turn out, then the city attorney should notify you guys and say, hey, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to need to hire another attorney. Do you approve? Now, when it talks about precedent you're setting, I just want you guys to be clear that you're setting precedent right now. That invoice has been paid for, and I'm not making the decision for you, but I just think that if you try to recover it, it's going to cause a lot more drama and expend funds that are, at this point, lost. The money's been accounted for. It doesn't affect the budget. I'll let him speak to that. But the president is now. What decision are you going to make moving forward? Who are you going to cover in what capacity? Make sure the charter and the ordinances match up to that so that there's no confusion here. But I just want to make it clear that precedent hasn't been set because you guys are obviously disagreeing with this payment. So let's put something in place now so that this doesn't happen again. That's just my 2 cents.
Well, I mean, there's no reason to disagree with the payment. The payment was rendered because we still haven't gotten feedback. And I don't know, Matt, did Ralph say anything to you about Mr. Salzman's comments? Mr. Salzman was the attorney on this case. So, John, when you were talking about did we defend Lacey, yeah, we paid for the defense of Lacey in this. Mr. Salzman was defending Lacey and the city in a case that now we don't know where it is, okay? Nobody's even talking about it now. The same, and Commissioner Weinstein, I know why you want to move ahead and not go back in the past, because we should ask you for the public funds to pay for your letter to the Attorney General. Well, no, you can smile all you want. That was illegal, and you know it was, so we'll go forward on that, okay? Maggie, when Clara had to defend herself against you, you see, this isn't, our opinions, my opinion, your opinions, don't really matter on here. We have a charter that reads what it reads. I just read it to you 3 times, okay? Anybody doing their business in their official capacity should be covered by the city. And I agree with you, John, and you made my point for me about the face-licking incident, okay? If somebody commits a sexual harassment or assault outside of their realm here, okay, we should be at no we shouldn't be paying for their attorneys.
And we did not. We did not pay for Nancy. on
What are
that
you
attorney.
talking about?
On that attorney, we did not. We paid for her attorney when, on the recall, but we did not.
We absolutely
No, we did not.
100%.
Go back and look at your numbers.
Walt, would you please respond to this?
It's been a while since that incident, and I'd have to do some,
Okay, did we pay for the fire chief's stuff?
and I'd have to look at that too as well.
Can you send somebody into your office there and get the stuff? You've sent me that paperwork. so I know
Again, that's
true.
paid through those type of items where if an employee is, has a suit, then we're covered through our insurance company at a total of $100,000 per year. So quite frankly, the fire chief could have received legal assistance because he is still an employee with the city. So, and once you exceed that 100,000, then the city would be obligated to decide whether they want to pay future payments or continue to pay, But
And 2 years ago, we exceeded our $100,000. We've had this conversation. Okay.
Right.
And that was the year when Commissioner Oakley and the fire chief had their hearings and they were found guilty. Correct?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you.
And
That's all I need. We don't even have to make a big deal about it. I agree, we have to go forward, and we got to set precedents now. But we really don't have to do anything. We have a charter. The charter dictates what we're allowed to do, okay? But in these cases, every single case that I brought up, we don't even know where these cases are. We have no idea. They've just been bought out, been abused in the freaking papers about it, okay? And they just sit here, and they linger over us. So what do we do from here?
Like I said, I think that we should not pay for attorneys for any of these things, kind of like the city attorney put in his email back on March 6th.
John, but you saw Helen's email that one of our other attorneys approved the invoice.
Okay, so we're not talking about, we're talking about going forward.
Point of
What you
order,
just said.
the other attorney did not approve the invoice. He asked for the invoice. It does not say that he approved it.
What would he ask for it?
During the negotiations, the subject of payment of my fees was discussed. I was told that Mr. Evans agreed. The city should pay my fees, and in an attempt to settle the matter, Mr. Saltzman asked me for my invoice so he could forward. It does not say that Mr. Saltzman approved the.
Do you see anything negative in that comment? Was there anything to the negative response that she wasn't going to get her fees paid for?
I'm sorry, Commissioner. All I'm saying is I definitely feel that an error was made. I certainly can understand the legal opinion here. I think that if somebody made a payment to me of $2,000, I'm just saying personally, if someone made a payment to me of $2,000 and I knew it was wrong, or even if I didn't know it was wrong, but then I was told it was wrong and they were able to substantiate that that is not paid, that I'd pay the $2,000 back. And that's where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
I
may
think that,
I'm sorry.
based on what the attorney said a minute ago, let that go, the Helen thing go, and let's move on and set the future president, what we're going to do, what we're going to pay, and what we're not going to pay. I think, Mr. Attorney, isn't that what you just said to us?
Well, I just want to say, bottom line, there's at least 5 people involved in this transaction that looked at this check. That was Ms. VanBlargan, Director Pierce, Ms. Price, Mr. Tarkenton, and Mr. Salzman. And I may have missed a person or two. And every single one of these people should have known. I don't think they did anything on purpose. They weren't trying to, pull a fast one or anything. But it happened, so we have to move forward. And I think we all agree it was paid in error. So I agree with Commissioner Weinstein. I think it might be a good idea to ask her, and it's up to her. If she doesn't, that's fine. But in the meantime, I think we do need to have public comment on this, so.
Madam Mayor, before you do, I just need to set the record straight on one issue. Lacey's attorney's fees were not paid. Mr. Salzman was the mediator, and apparently there was some miscommunication done originally that he was supposed to be assigned as the attorney of record, but wasn't. So I just wanted to set the record straight.
Mr. City Manager, where does the case sit now? What are we doing with it now? I'd actually like a charter officer to review all 3 cases that I brought up, because they shouldn't be hanging over the city like this.
My understanding that the mediator decided that there wasn't enough evidence to move forward on any complaint.
The floor is now open for public comment.
Robert Preston, 425 South Bayshore Drive, Madeira Beach. I read through went through the agenda and read all that information that was in the agenda. And what's apparent to me is that there's no policy that directs what should be done in these cases. You have no policy. So to try to go back and get money that's already been paid is kind of like really odd to me, because it's $2,200 and we paid double for Rex Place from the RFP, but you're not going after hundreds of thousands of dollars, or Boca Ciega, where it was another third more than the RFP in hundreds of thousands of dollars from the original. You're not trying to get resolved during that, but you're trying to get resolved for a $2,200 something that we didn't have. The city has no policy on. They have the one that's in the charter. And then the other thing is we have department heads, and it's my understanding that Ralph Brooks is the department head for the legal. Is that true? So any payments legal, period, before it goes to Mr. Daniels, should be reviewed by Ralph Brooks with a recommendation. So where is Ralph in all this? He's absent, other than the email back in March. But any payments that are done. So that tells me that there's no procedures, there's no step-by-step, no guidelines for anybody in any of the departments to pay this type of bill. And your job now, just like it's been stated, just like John stated, is we need to move forward and say, from now on, this is how we're going to deal with this. Now, briefly, I became a planning member. If I've done something as part of my job, I would think the city, as far as the charter says, that I would be protected if I'm operating as a member of the planning committee. Thank you.
I do have a comment, request for public comment from Patrice Pussy.
No, I withdraw my request, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Aggie, could you speak into the microphone? Sorry, it's hard to hear. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes. Does anybody else wish to speak? Public comment is now closed on this item.
You know, I think, I would just like to bring up, you know, we have an attorney there, and we should be listening to what he's saying. You know, if we like him, if we don't like him, that's neither here nor there. He's an attorney, and we're paying somebody to sit there and give us the advice. And based on his advice, you know, I think, I'd like to make a recommendation, because we can't make a motion at this point, that we come up with a procedure or an ordinance that says how we are going to do this in the future, period. You know, who we're going to pay, when we're not going to pay, et cetera. So, Mr. City Manager, I'd like you to take that. And then, you know, and based on the city attorney's advice that we just let the Helen Price invoice go, I know you guys aren't happy with that, but it's just based on what the city attorney is saying, and let's move forward with it. And let's get our ducks lined up for the future. I think that's what we need to do. We need to say, we will take care of this, we won't take care of this, stuff like that, so. I just think that, Mr. City Manager, that we need some type of ordinance or whatever we need. Do we need to go in and what we need to fix or whatever to make this move smoothly in the future, and everybody knows the left and right limits, period. And there's no misunderstanding down the road. So that would be my recommendation. Debbie, I see you down there thinking. Go ahead. Say what you.
I'm listening to your words.
I think anything else, we're just beating a dead horse, so.
With the commission's approval, then, I'll go ahead and draft something in conjunction with our charter, and we can discuss at a meeting, vote it in, and like we do our regular procedures for our personnel and the procedures manual, if that's okay, and we'll just do it as an addition to that.
I think we have a consensus.
I agree with
to do
that.
Okay.
Point of clarification real quick. Charter amendments, are they voted on by the
Yes.
public? Correct.
Charter amendments are, yes.
Correct. So I'll speak to Ralph Brooks, but I would urge you to as well, because if the language is in the ordinances, then you wouldn't need a vote, which would expedite putting in place whatever policies you do have. Just point of clarification.
Okay. Thank you.
The next item is an email access complaint by a citizen and responses. City Manager.
This is our city clerk.
This item was placed on the agenda for informational purposes at one of the meetings with the issue, when the issue of the Attorney General issue had come up. It was said by a couple of commissioners that if something should come up on the city clerk, they want to know about it. So I put this on there for informational purposes. If you would like to say anything to that, Attorney.
I can't hear. You need talking.
I spoke with the clerk before this. I think not only is she putting this on because it was requested, but moving forward, I think she would want some direction on how to bring this up if complaints do come up in the future, whether it be at a public meeting. As you all know, as the clerk of the city, she's allowed to email you all correspondences, so it could just be a simple email letting you know as well. I just wanted to put that out there.
When I was going through and reading this, I don't think the city clerk has got, or anyone, any employee of the city has the right to read my emails, unless, if it's a city email site, yes, I agree with that. But if I'm sending an email from myself to Walt or to Bob or something like that, it's nobody else's business. Now, if somebody complains that I'm sending an email that is degrading someone or it's harassment or something like that, yes, then this clerk should have the authority to go in and look at the emails to verify it. Other than that, I don't think anybody from this city should be able to look at my emails. That's their personal things, they might, their business or whatever, but it's between me and that person, and I don't feel that they have the right to do that. In my personal opinion, I think anybody that does read my emails should be terminated on the spot if they're found out about it.
May I comment on that?
Let me finish.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know she's the keeper of the records, but the records doesn't mean she gets to go through everybody's emails or picks and chooses. Well, I'm going to go through two of Doug's and one of Nancy's and one of mine. She doesn't get to choose that. There has to be a reason for her to look into our emails. Now, if somebody says, I want all the email traffic between John Douthert and Joe Smith out here, then she should be contacting me saying that, hey, I need all the email traffic. And then I will send that to her. But other than that, I don't think that she has the right just to arbitrarily go in and look at my emails.
If I may, I understand your concern, but as a public official, I would urge you to consider anything and everything you do city-related as a public record. Facebook posts, text messages, emails, anything. Now, in regards to the city clerk, she is the custodian of records, which is a reactive department, so to speak, like code enforcement. If someone came forward with an official public record request, and it doesn't even have to be official, they can come in and ask, and they say, I want every email from January 1st, 2019 till now from you or whatever email you use in your city capacity, she's obligated to provide that, and if you didn't, you would be facing a huge lawsuit on the other end of that.
And I said, that's fine, but she should contact me first to say, hey, I have this request.
Okay, and that's a policy decision you can make. However, there are timeframes in public records requests, so I would just urge you, if she is going to reach out to you, to make sure you respond timely. But yeah, that's a policy decision if you want to be kind of notified first. However, I'm assuming the city has an IT department, which probably helps Clara a lot in these situations with tracking email, because once you send an email, it's on the city server, and the IT department understands how to retrieve these things. But yeah, that is a policy decision on your part.
May I comment on this? These emails here were through a public records request, and I processed it, and the building department, they all provided whatever was asked for and everything. And it's about neighbors fussing in the community or whatever. But anyway, but then he thought that, I just don't go in people's emails. I do not do that.
And that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm
We do
saying.
not, but the statement was like I did. But I just wanted, if you didn't mean it that way, I just want to make the record straight that I just don't go in people's emails and start seeing what they want to do. It's just with this email here, it was the goodness of the city manager that came in my office and made me aware of the email, and he couldn't find the one that was sent to him, and so we printed it out and everything. But again, this was in the course of my duty, and like the public records manager had said yesterday, it's a courtesy if you want to copy the others and say, hey, look, I got all these, I've got to provide all these emails and stuff like that. But sometimes with the complexity of these emails, it's not just emails back and forth with these people, it's topics. It's like this one, it was certain subjects of permits and things like that. So there are a variety of different emails, and I have copies of the public records requests if you would like to see those, but we don't have time to go in and just read emails. And as far as the IT people, we do contract with this IT people, but they do not answer public records requests, and I had a hard time with them when I come on board and expressed to them it would take a very long time to get what I needed. So they finally came up with the system of Proofpoint and allowed me access to go in there and just put in keywords, and it comes up, and then what we have to do is just briefly go through them on the topics and stuff to make sure that what we're putting out there is not an exempt record. And it's not a very easy system to do. So we don't have like inboxes of everybody where we're just seeing their email. This is a different type of system. And so in the public records law, I am the custodian of public records, and in the city charter, custodian of public records, I have to ensure their safety, and if I should get a public records request, I have to provide that, which mainly, a lot of times it goes to those departments, and in this case, my deputy, she went into Proofpoint and had to put in all these key words just to come up with what they were asking for, so that in the goodness and satisfying the public records law to be from being at risk of being sued, there was different topics put in there. It just wasn't conversations from, I want a conversation from this person, this person. It was all to do with certain subjects. That's what these emails were. But I just wanted to let everybody know, as a custodian of public records, I don't get a joy of just sitting there and going and reading people's emails. But if I should get that public record request, I have to, by the letter of the law, do my job. And in a lot of these things in my defense, and like in the city charter, I have been fighting for what I have been doing that protects me in the charter, that in the course of my business, and might put my bill through or whatever, But in this case right here, I was just doing my job, processing it, doing what we have to, and then making sure we don't go out there and send emails that's exempt. Got anything to do with employment or something that is exempt or against the HIPAA law, or, there's a lot in this. And there was a mass of different types of emails that was asked for, And it was doing with topics, and that's what they got. And then whatever they do with them out there is out of my control. If they want to complain about it, I just took action in the course of my duty, and I just want to explain that, in that right there. That I wasn't just sitting there reading people's emails. And I was very thankful to the city manager that he made me aware of that email. And so of what was being said, that way we could address it, that I follow the law in them getting those emails. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Floor is open for public comment on this item.
Robert Preston, 425 South Bay Shore Drive, Madeira Beach. John, in the agenda, I even read it, and it has state law and stuff in there. Everything that you do with the city, whether it's verbal in here, in writing, or like the attorney says, Facebook and stuff, and it's based on the attorney, that is a public record. You have no choice about it. That's why you're a public official, and those things are available to the public. The only thing that's protected is like hiring and firing and stuff like that. But that was in your agenda packet, the state law, because I read it. So I just keep in mind that anything you do up here is public record, and anything that you write is public record. Thank you.
Mr. President, I understand that. What I was saying was just to willy-nilly to go through my emails, I would not appreciate that. If she's doing her job, and like she said, looking for something because someone asked, I have no problem with that, as I stated earlier. But just, I'm going to go through John's emails and see who John sent an email to or what he wrote to person A, B, or C. That's what I was saying.
I don't know how many employees there are in the city. I don't think one individual has enough time to go through all the emails in the city.
But that's what I was saying. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioner. The thought process when sending, and this is just a suggestion, when sending anything city-related, just assume someone that you don't want to read it will. Just assume that, and it'll prevent you from putting certain things, and you may take a deep breath and think about how to write it. And like I said, this is a suggestion, but I understand your concern. I just think with the city just explaining, or the city clerk explaining all the processes she has to go through, considering there's a 10-day to 15-day time frame, it's up to her and it's up to you. Of course, she can notify you, but I think it would help you if you understand that anytime you send something to one person, expect 10 other people to read it.
I understand that totally, Mr. Attorney. And that's why I don't go into emails. I don't use emails. People send them to me. I do not go on emails, period. I just stay off of them because of that reason.
Okay.
My name is Patrice Pucci. I'm an attorney. I represent Clara VanBlargan. I do, as an attorney, need to respond to your attorney or make any representations. Are you okay, sir, if I speak to the commission?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. The conversation on this area started out with a statement that the issue was that Ms. VanBlargan wanted to know how she should report anything that concerned her job. And I've heard discussion of whether or not she is willy-nilly reviewing documents. That's based on conjecture. There were some representations between the mayor and a citizen where a citizen made that allegation. There was no investigation. To my knowledge, until today, there was no specific statement by Clara on that. So that is pure conjecture as to whether or not that ever even happened in this case. The other circumstance is, and your attorney certainly can advise you of this, is Ms. VanBlargan is required to read emails before they are produced in response because there are certain exceptions and certain exemptions to the Public Records Act. I leave that certainly to your attorney to go over that with you, but that requires her to do that. What is really at issue here is something that I addressed in a letter that I sent because of unclear as to how Ms. VanBlargan should state her problems or grievances. I sent a letter on October 17th to Mr. Brooks stating what was particularly disturbing is it appears that there seems to be continual retaliation by Mayor Black, and that the mayor made representations to this citizen that the commission has not given the clerk, Ms. VanBlargan, permission to have access to email. Of course you have, that's the law. She's required to have that access. So that was a misrepresentation. It's not part of her job description. It is part of her job description as the clerk and under the law and the laws that were provided to you in the packet. So that was a misrepresentation. And Ms. Bear Black went on, and the fact that she reads and acts on emails that are not her business is distressing. Again, pure conjecture. There was no investigation, nothing to prove that. I will address that. Only after that did the mayor go to the attorney, city attorney, and say, can you let me know if it's true that she has access to everyone's emails? So the issue is the mayor appears to have gone out of her way to defame Ms. VanBlargan, to indicate she was acting outside the scope of her job, and then only later went and asked the attorney about it. That's one of the big concerns here, is how does Ms. VanBlargan go forward in stating her objections when things are raised that may impact her job. As her attorney, I did that through the city attorney. If that process changes, I need to be aware of that, and Ms. VanBlargan needs to be aware of that. Thank you.
Just ask her a few questions real quick. I just need to know the capacity you're in. Are you her personal attorney?
I am her personal attorney.
And your name?
Patrice Pucci. As a discussion of the charter, I am representing her in her capacity, however, as acting within her job description. I didn't give my address. Let me give that. That is 695 Central Avenue in St. Petersburg, 33710.
Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak? Public comment is now closed on this item. I would do want to say, what I said in this email was really a misrepresentation of what I was really asking. Because obviously I know she's got access to our emails. But what was being suggested by this person was that she is reading emails that are not under her normal purview. So, and that's really what I wanted to know. How can we see if she is actually reading emails as he is suggesting? And that's all I wanted to know.
And just to be clear, based on some comments that Ms. VanBlargan's attorney said, anything you say to your attorney, Ralph Brooks or me, or in private is privileged. So although she's referencing things that you maybe asked in a court of law, that would be privileged. So I want you to still feel comfortable to ask your attorney these questions, because that's why he's there, is to understand the legalese and the law and what you can and can't do.
Is there any more discussion on this item? Okay. The next item is presentation on the enterprise rent-a-car. Director Pierce.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
My name's Jamie Lee. I'm the account manager working with Walt and his team for the city of Madeira Beach. And this is Don Duckworth.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to enjoy a window view, much better than the parking garage we're typically staring at over in Tampa. So real quickly, I'm the area manager for Enterprise Fleet Management on the west coast of Florida, and have been in that capacity for the past 12 years and with Enterprise for 24 now. And then for the past 2 years, I've actually had the opportunity to sit on the Florida League of Cities Transportation and Intergovernmental Affairs Committee.
So again, I'd like to thank you guys for having us here today, and thank you for the opportunity to partner with the City of Madeira Beach. Like I said before, I've been working really closely with Walt and his team over the past 10 months or so that we've been partnered to make sure that we've implemented this program and that it's been successful. And so I'd like to start with just a recap of where we were this time last year. At that time, 41% of the light and medium duty fleet was 10 years old or older, and that was creating a lot of issues with reliability and productivity, safety, and the city was experiencing high maintenance and fuel costs. Additionally, in order to maintain the budget, the city was limited to 2 vehicle purchases per year, which means that it would have taken about 8.5 years to cycle out of the fleet entirely. So now, based on all of that, the city's objectives at that time really fell into 3 main categories: increasing controls and mitigating risk, improving safety, and reducing the city's overall fleet expense. And there's a couple of ways that we were planning on accomplishing this. So to increase controls and mitigate risk, the city now uses Geotab, which is a telematics device, and that provides reports on risk and safety, accident detection and notifications, seatbelt usage information, in-vehicle notifications so that the drivers can self-correct, and trip history, which is really important to the city. If the vehicle's ever in an accident or involved in a lawsuit, now the city has the ability to go back and look and see where that vehicle was and when it was there. The city also now is using a comprehensive reporting platform through the enterprise website, and specific to risk mitigation and controls, it provides safety recall information, as well as maintenance outlier alerts, utilization reports, and other really important alerts. And then lastly, the city is now utilizing WEX or Ride Express fuel cards, which not only offers controls and exceptions through, making sure that the vehicles are getting fueled up with the right type of gas, not getting fueled up with more than the tank will allow, and making sure that maybe employees aren't getting fuel when they shouldn't be, so controls like that. But it also provides information on miles per gallon, so that's helping the city to make better decisions when it comes to replacement, and can benefit financially. The second city initiative was to improve safety. We all know that accidents are going to happen. We can't really avoid them, but what the city recognized was that there is an opportunity to reduce the frequency and the severity of the accidents. And so one of the ways that the city is doing that is by being on a proactive replacement cycle. So I mentioned this earlier, that when we first met with the city, that 41% of the vehicles were 10 years old or older, which meant that they weren't equipped. A lot of the vehicles weren't equipped with safety features that are standard today. For example, electronic stability controls, blind spot warning, forward collision warning, those all became standard in 2012. And then most recently, the rear vision cameras, which became standard in May of 2018. So again, by refreshing the fleet, the city's already taking advantage of those new safety features. I can tell you, over the past couple of months, we've actually come and picked up, or we're scheduled to pick up 8 vehicles, and 6 out of those 8 couldn't be driven because they weren't safe enough to be driven, so we had to tow them. And so by implementing this program, you guys are already heading in the right direction and improving the fleet and safety for the employees in the city. Being on a proactive replacement cycle is also helping the city to achieve its last initiative, which is to reduce the total cost of ownership for fleet. Proactive replacement cycle is allowing the city to maximize equity, increase the fuel efficiency, and to control its maintenance costs. The city has adopted and taken advantage of Enterprise's full maintenance program, which is fixed and budgeted. So that's for the vehicles acquired through Enterprise. The maintenance will continue to be outsourced to local businesses and stimulate economic growth. And then the remaining vehicles will continue to be done in-house using the maintenance resources that you guys have here. And then lastly, the city's been leveraging the flexibility of an open-end lease. The city still retains ownership, but you can acquire more vehicles without a large capital outlay. So to ensure that the partnership would be financially beneficial to the city, we provided an analysis to the board that was approved last year. And at that time, it was estimated that the city of Madeira Beach would reduce their maintenance costs by 69%. The open-end lease would maximize cash flow and recognize the equity at time of resale. And by shifting from reactively replacing vehicles when they were inoperable to being more proactive about their purchases, we estimated that the city would be able to replace 7 of its oldest units within a year and save approximately $12,415 per year on average once the program is fully implemented. And so I'm really happy to be back here today to report that we are very much on track. Over the past 10 months, we've been right on target. The current average age of the fleet has been reduced by almost 2 years to 5 years old. The average maintenance expense has been reduced from $15,762 down to $10,509, so a reduction of a little over $5,000. And Enterprise has sold 4 vehicles so far, which has resulted in $10,767 in equity for the city. Over the next couple of weeks, we anticipate the remaining 4 to be sold, so you can expect more equity back to the city. And then by leveraging an open and lease, the city was able to actually acquire 8 vehicles, an additional vehicle than what we had anticipated in our original analysis. And the annual cost for those 8 vehicles was $54,790 compared to the average of purchasing just 2 vehicles at $54,361. So again, really excited to be working for the city of Madeira Beach. At this time, I'll open it up to any questions.
Madam Mayor and Commissioners, I would just like to say that on October 8th, I did give the board a status report on this program from management's perspective. And while, we're still trying to determine the degrees of success of this program, the relationship with Enterprise, Jamie and Don have just, is getting better and just improves, as we go forward. And they are very much dedicated to making this project a success. And Jamie's been here several times to talk to staff, and even last Monday, they both came to talk to our directors one more time to see if they had any questions. The setup of the GPS sometimes is a little complicated, and also with the mobile app for the maintenance is also a challenge, but they were here and took questions and were very helpful. And so, I'm very confident that going forward that this program, will be a success. And there are aspects of it right now that I think have advantages that will true out and will come to reality pretty soon. It definitely is a safety feature. And one of the things about the GPS, I've heard a lot of talk about how it's Big Brother watching over our employees. That's way down on the list. What's first is safety, and from an insurance standpoint, we do get a break from this. If any of these vehicles get in an accident, this GPS system is going to determine what was going on before, during, and after. So we will have all that information in determining what happens if and when we get in an accident. All the maintenance is going to be geared to and on a very regimented process, how and when the vehicles are maintained. And by the way, all the department heads have been given access to very local, very close by businesses where they can have that maintenance done and choose those as they see fit. So there is a lot of flexibility there. And I've also heard some aspects about features on these vehicles. These vehicles have the safety features that our staff needs and that the vehicles need to do their jobs and their tasks that they do every day. And that's the way that they were spec'd. So I do think that going forward, these vehicles are really what the city needs. And, it's going to, and like I said, the benefits are going to true out. Jamie mentioned a good point. 4 of these vehicles have to be towed out of here. We want to get away from driving our vehicles into the ground. That's been the procedure in the past in this city, and we have to stop that. We're putting our employees at risk, and they're not having the proper specs and features that they should have. I'm all for taken advantage of a vehicle to its extreme. But when vehicles have to be towed out of here because, they're just not drivable anymore, and only a couple of months ago, these cars would be driven by our employees, and they were just patched and patched and patched. So one of the aspects of this program is to get away from that and take advantage of that we can turn around these vehicles when we want to, and we have the flexibility to do that when it's appropriate, and not wait till these vehicles are ready to be pronounced dead. So that's the whole aspect of it. And like I said, I have full confidence in going forward that this program will be a success.
Maybe if I can, one additional thing to add to what Mr. Pierce said about there being some insurance benefits to the GPS system. The cycling vehicles themselves and all of the safety, the new safety options that are becoming standard equipment, not just available to the upper end class vehicles. A good example, and a big topic of conversation, is distracted driving. Well, one of the biggest things the industry is doing to try to help offset that is the automatic emergency braking. So the vehicle actually sees the obstacle or the object that is fast approaching, even if the driver doesn't. And so what that means is the vehicle itself starts to brake, and hopefully the intention is to stop before impact, but even if it doesn't stop, to significantly lessen the speed of impact when that occurs. So that's an additional thing that not only makes it physically safer, but from an insurance standpoint, which I think insurance rates across all fronts, whether it be public or private, we've recognized that those have gone up most significantly in the liability portion. This is something to directly help offset some of the reasons why the liability costs have gone up so much in recent years.
Walt, I got some questions for you. Could you get us how much we spent on maintenance in the last quarter of this last year versus the last quarter of the previous year? See how much our maintenance costs have dropped due to our, doing the new vehicles? And also how much our fuel cost has dropped. One quarter, the previous year to this last year. I agree 100% on the safety things. For our employees, for the city, for everything, I'm 100% behind that, and I agree with this wholeheartedly. I just want to see where we're saving the money at, because we were sending it up and having maintenance done by other people. How much we spend on maintenance versus how much we're saving right now.
And by the way, this program is also we've had Leroy who fixes all our vehicles in the past. And this has really freed him up to spend more time. This program does not cover our emergency or fire vehicles and some of our other, like garbage trucks and so forth. And this has freed him up to spend more time on those other types of vehicles. But I will provide that information for you.
Thank you.
I had a question, and it was for y'all, I think, or for anybody. When you said out of 8 vehicles that Enterprises picked up, 6 needed to be towed, 6 needed to be towed. So my question is how inoperative were they? I mean, have they been sitting around for 3 months, 2 years?
That's one of the aspects where
curious.
we did receive some of these vehicles. Our staff couldn't wait to get some of these, and some of these vehicles had to go through inspection before they were delivered to us. And our staff was just counting the days and the hours because they were driving vehicles that just were just ready to go. I know Brian, parking supervisor, his vehicle was just, day to day. He got in there some days and didn't know if it was going to start or if it was going to run. And I know Deb had the same thing with her truck, even though over the years she's fell in love with that truck. But these vehicles just, should have really been replaced sooner. And they had a lot of deficiencies to them. And actually all of the directors, the three directors involved were continuously asking me, Walt, I know Jamie said that they were coming on this date. Can they come sooner? So we couldn't wait to get these vehicles. And the last 2 vehicles were sanitation dump box trucks. those required a lot of specification, and as Jamie knows, and they couldn't come here soon enough. So to answer your question, you know, these vehicles just were so obsolete and just very desperate need to be replaced, and, you know, just beyond maintenance and a Band-Aid type approach that we were given to them.
But they were still used, but I know exactly what you're talking about, because I walked around the city enough to know that when I heard them clunk, clunk, I knew what was behind me. It was one of our city trucks. So I'm totally aware of that, but I'm just curious, they weren't, I mean, to be towed, they weren't totally inoperative, is I guess what I'm saying. They were in horrible shape, but they weren't just sitting around for 3 or 4 years. That's what I was looking for.
And
So
one of
they
the good
weren't.
things is, Jamie mentioned it, the 4 vehicles that were towed, or the 4 vehicles that were, that left here, we ended up getting close to $11,000 for those, and that's a little bit more than what I was projecting that we were going to get for them. So, you know, one of the aspects or the advantages of having them, they get to test all kinds of markets for selling these vehicles, whereas, you know, that was the business of the city and city staff before. And they have more, I mean, they're professionals. They take cars and sell them all day, so they know where to get the best deals. Whereas that's in the past, that's been, you know, city staff jobs, and their jobs to do that.
I'm looking forward to the next report then. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. And we just want to just restate, I know Jamie started with this, but fully committed to the city. So obviously working with Mr. Pierce as well as some of the department heads. Anything we can do in addition to what we're already doing, obviously, please feel free to give us that input, because we only know what we know, and if we can offer anything more, we're absolutely committed to doing so. Thanks.
If I may just ask one question real quick regarding the geotab, just so employees know and whatnot. It's strictly GPS. There's no voice recording or in-car recording? No. Okay, thank you.
Floor is open for public comment on this item. Floor is closed. Next item is proposed charter amendments.
That's me. On the 4th one, I want to pull that one. It needs more analysis on that one. I didn't really have a lot of help from the city attorney on that one. It was on the city clerk provision. There's my analysis needs to be stronger on that. So, and it wasn't the amendment was not addressing what Commissioner Hodges had stressed at the other meeting about the safety of the clerk. Did you want to say anything?
Well, I wasn't here, so I don't know what was being asked by Commissioner Hodges in regards to amending the charter.
So I'd like to pull that. It does need some, the analysis needs to be revisited on that.
Which one are you referring to, Clara, exactly? Would you
Fourth
name it?
one on the city clerk provision.
The one about the city clerk not
Yeah,
being a
that one
charter
is-
officer?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's next.
Thank you.
We're going to revisit that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Page 42. This one's on the qualifying period. Of course, the 3 that we'll go over is the ones that was discussed with the Charter Review Committee and with the board on September 22nd. So I laid out all the information in the memo. If you had any questions on that.
I don't have any questions, but I don't know, would someone from the committee like to speak?
Thank you, Doreen Moore, 13019 Boca Ciega Avenue. Just wanted to review that the committee did receive the packets. We had a meeting on October 7th, and there was a lot of information to review. We basically, I guess I want to talk about the procedure and how we got this, in that I received it on Friday night, like 7:30, and our meeting was Monday afternoon at 1 o'clock. And I was out of town, and I know that many of us had difficulty digesting that much material. So we had the meeting. Paul Tilka, Jerry Clyott, myself, as part of the committee. Grace Critelli was not able to attend. So we did go through the provisions that Clara had provided to us, and we had discussion. And so for your benefit as the commissioners, there's nothing in these memos that kind of give you any background about what we discussed. And so I'd like to just be able to take the opportunity to give my opinions now that we've had time and we can digest it. While these charter amendments are, in my opinion, housekeeping, and some of them certainly need to be updated, I don't think that we should set a precedent as a community to be bringing charter amendments to the electorate every time we have an election. Our charter talks about having that you appoint a charter committee, and that every 5 years we review the charter. That we did that, and we took it to the residents. We had charter amendments that we did in November, then in March of 2019. And there was a lot of work for everyone, residents and everyone else, to read through, and there were a lot of revisions that were passed. I just personally don't think that we should be doing charter amendments. You should appoint a commission about every 4 years, bring things forward. I recommend that the clerk keep a list of items, things that some of these, as I say, are very valid, and they should be kept together as a list, and then you should have a committee and you should bring them forward. I did want to say, and I don't know if you're going to cut me off in 3 minutes. I don't know if we're allowed to exceed that, but the point being is that, yes, the clerk has pulled that one item, but again, and I've spoken to the commission before about that, I think that for the clerk, and I guess Vice Mayor Hodges, you made that recommendation, you made it the day after we had the committee meeting. So suddenly now we've got things that are back on the commission recommendation, which has now been pulled. But if you're asking the charter committee to be your eyes and ears and to bring forward things, you don't have the benefit of having given it to us to review. And then furthermore, we also haven't had any of these conversations, and I think that's what a workshop is for, so that the committee members like myself can come up and say, this is my opinion. I think some of these recommendations, if I'm allowed to continue, some of them, for example, about the changing the timeframes on the let me get to it. The qualifying periods. Our city has had set rules about qualifying periods. We have always done it that way, and I don't feel that we should change a qualifying period and the charter amendment recommendation that the clerk shall make available qualifying packets containing general candidate information, election materials, petition forms, filing papers, no later than the third Monday in November preceding the regular city election. That basically opens you up to a 4-month campaign period. I don't think it's something our city has ever done. I recognize that we have been provided with the documentation. The state statute says that we may do this, but it's not what our city has done in the past. And I think that all of us are beat up from a federal, state, and now, potentially a local level. We don't need a 4-month campaign period. We don't need people, mailers and knocking on doors. I think it creates further voter fatigue, and I think it'll drive people away from the issues at hand. So I don't agree with some of the charter proposals that were stated, but I also think that there's no rush to make these changes now, and that's the basis of my thoughts and decisions with the time I've been able to digest it. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment on the packets I make early anyway. It doesn't have to be the language in there. I get it all out there, and some people take advantage of it to come in and just talk about it, see if they want to do it. But the qualifying period, like I had explained, is when you actually bring in your your materials, your petitions and all that to be qualified. But no, that language doesn't have to be there, but I'll have my packets, I'm already working on my packets, and I'll be doing my advertising, and if anybody should choose to want to come in and just go over the packet, that's fine. And it is a long qualifying period, and I am allowed to, like, if I'm going to be gone a few days in that Christmas, I can put that in the advertisement, what days I'll be there available for people to turn in their information. So I thought it would be easier if we come away from the Christmas and New Year's holidays and got in line with our peer cities, with the resolution that the commission had adopted to do research, seeing what they're doing. And so I think theirs is over with by the second week of December. And ours goes on through Christmas and New Year's and goes on after that. And I don't know what the thought process of that was a long time ago when they put that in, but I can put in the newspaper what days that week I'll be out. But it would be nice to at least present it to the voters and see what they think about it. They either can change it or they can just leave it the same. These are little charter amendments that it's like the runoff provision. The voters approved the Pinellas County Canvassing Board being our canvassing board for all the elections, but they're not able to assist us if we should have a runoff. And again, it may not be for a long time, but what if it actually happened within a couple of years? It would be nice to at least clean up that language while we know. I think what I'm pointing out here is about the only things that I saw in the charter that basically needed to be touched on. And Commissioner Downthard had brought up the terms, and that's the only reason I presented that, and I think he changed his mind about that. But at least I provided the information of how that lines up if it got changed to a 4-year. I mean, I just did my due diligence in that, just putting the homework together on that. But I would like to, as the election official, present something to the voters on that qualifying period. And we're still having a qualifying period. It just won't be in the Christmas and the New Year's holidays. And then doing away with that runoff, just doing it in the language, whether we ever encounter that or not. But, cities do encounter that, and we don't ever know when that should happen. And then also the recall election that I went through. Of course, we're mandated to go by what the Florida statute says. Once the judge sets the the election, and going by how long I have to do notice the election or qualifying period, there was nothing addressed. But I could do that if we have a section in the city charter where, it's like we're doing now, we're having second reading on the procedure that we're mandated to do and vote on, laying out the procedure, the seats that are up and where we're going to, where the polling locations are. If we change that to resolution, which then I wouldn't be tied to having a first reading. City charter says that I have to notice advertise the ordinance no less than 14 days. So then you're talking, a whole 30-day period that you have first and second reading, and that didn't fit in. And it says you have to do it with special elections, which are municipal. Your recall election is a special election. So because it says ordinance, it was very hard for me to comply with what we have. But the procedures in the Florida statutes, as far as what I follow for recall, I have to follow that. But there's no guidelines in there when you're going to have your qualifying period and all that, notice your election, which I have to notice an election twice within a 30-day period before the qualifying period. So that made it a little difficult. So it's just something simple. If I can just relay that to them and let's just get that language cleaned up, because you never know, we could have another recall election 2 or 3 years from now. But at least I'll have something on the books that would help me in my capacity as the election official to help me in those duties there. But I know we had a lot of, on the ballot in November 2018, then in March, but these is just little 3 or 4 little ones there, and that does need to be cleaned up, that I feel. And so, I mean, that's up to you whether we want to put it on there. I mean, a lot of times if the commission's presented with an ordinance, and of course they don't want to go forward with it, the citizens can go out and get 300 signatures already and on it and put it right on the ballot. And so, but anyway, I'd like to put these on there. I mean, that's up to you, but I'd like to do it.
There's one thing I don't like in here. Well, there's more than that, but according to what's written here, if I understand it, they get to go out and get petition cards first before stating their intent by getting a bank account.
No, they file their DSDE-9. They designate a bank, and they designate their campaign treasurer. They designate.
Okay, well, maybe I misread that, but
Yeah.
bottom line is, as Ms. Moore said, we're going to have voter fatigue. I mean, the voters have already gone through this in the last election with all the amendments. I think we need to take more time and talk about it, and there's no hurry to do this. So I would suggest we just table it.
Yeah, because I know we'll have the 3 seats and 3 or 4 questions, 7 things on the ballot, but that's, like I said, that's up to you all.
Madam Mayor, if I may just just go ahead. Just one suggestion, just because I worked heavily with the Charter Review Committee earlier this year and late last year. And I think the issue is, which causes voter fatigue, is you guys as a city have a lot of stuff in your charter that other cities have in their ordinances, right? So when it's in your ordinance, you're getting here, you're advertising it, you're reviewing it twice, you're approving it, and now it's law. When it's in your charter, everything's a citizen vote. So my suggestion back there to the Charter Review Committee, if you guys are going to vote on charter amendments at some point, it may be beneficial to go through it or have the committee go through it and figure out what you want moved in the Code of Ordinances. Make it one big vote, or however else we have to do it in accordance with law, so that it gives you guys the ability to change things when you need to, because you're right, the Florida statute changes, you have to abide by the statute. If that was in your ordinances, you could simply just amend it every time the statute amends, rather than take it to a vote. So that's just a suggestion I'd like you guys to think about, because they're in 2 different documents. One's a lot easier to operate, one's a lot more difficult to.
Right, and Mayor, I would also like to say that I'm probably going to make the same comments that I made on our October the 8th meeting, but we have asked our voters on November the 6th, 2018, and again on March the 13th, 2019, for 21 charter amendments totally. And I just really think that was, and I don't like to use the word voter fatigue. I think it's more respectful to our voters, okay, and more respectful to all our citizens to put a package together. I don't think that we should have any charter amendments on the March, or any referendum things on the March 17th, 2020 election. I think we should take the advice, and I was thinking the same thing, of the Charter Review Committee and put together a package that includes these items that we're talking about that have already been brought up, because certainly it is respectful to ask our voters what they think about it. I just don't think we should badger them every year. I think that Charter Review Committee should meet every 5 years. They should meet in 2023 perhaps, and that the city clerk should keep together all of those questions, all of the questions, all of the ideas that have come from the Board of Commissioners, that have come from the Charter Review Committee, that have come from the city manager, and discuss them all and put them in one package. The one thing I really am opposed to in the current section, though, is the ability to make available the candidate qualifying packets containing general candidate information, election materials, petition forms, and filing papers no later than the 3rd Monday in November preceding the regular city election. The regular city election is not going to be until March the 17th of 2020, for instance, in this particular year. We're allowing 4 months for a candidate to campaign. 4 months. I mean, they're in office 2 years. The average salary is $8,000 a year, and we're given 4 months to go throw mud at somebody? I mean, and this is what is happening. I'm not saying that this happens in our city, but I'm just saying that this is what has been happening culturally, maybe, in lots of other cities. I read about it in the paper yesterday morning, too, of another city. I think we need to respect our voters more. I think that throwing 4 months of a campaign is way too much. I think that it's not only 4 months of a campaign. You must remember that we are on staggered terms. So that really means that if we allow this in this current form, what it really means is if after after the election is over in March of the year, that the next November, 6 months after, you really can start campaigning again, not for certainly that same office, but, for the offices that will be up the following, March. And I just don't think that's good for our citizens. I don't think it's respectful for them. And I really, I think that this issue of the first thing, the qualifying periods, I think that the issue of the 2 years to the 4 years for commission members, which was the other suggestion for a charter amendment to be brought before the voters in 2020. And then I guess the one that our city clerk has just taken off the agenda for today, need to go back for more thought. I think that the qualifying period, as we have it in the books now, the idea for a runoff, and I don't know what your suggestion would be for that, because I do understand what's happening in the Pinellas County Canvassing Board for the 2020 election. It's not going to happen every year thereafter. It's only on a presidential year. Is that correct?
Yes, it is, and St. Pete Beach just changed their ordinance with regards to runoffs and how to handle that.
I certainly...
Other cities are doing it as well. Just because the time frame right now, the Pinellas County Supervisor of Elections is letting every city know that they're not going to be equipped with the presidential election coming up to handle a runoff.
Right.
And most cities don't have a runoff in place, kind of,
Correct.
as to what to do. They lean on their supervisor. So what the cities have been doing is either making a decision on how to solve the tie or just completely do away with the runoff. But as you can see, that causes problems if there is a tie. What happens at that point? And speaking on St. Pete Beach, I forget the terminology, but it's pretty much drawing a name out of a hat or shortest straw. That's kind of the gist they went to in determining how to figure out a tie.
Right, okay.
So.
Okay, I appreciate your comments there, City Attorney. I just feel that the idea of going to the voters in March of 2020 is not the best approach to do it all. 4 months and then 6 months later going into it again for other candidates is just, it's not helping our city. I don't think it's encouraging good civic responsibility and good civic duty.
Let me speak to the campaigning part. You're not allowed to spend any money, collect any money until you've been qualified as a candidate, which takes place during your qualifying period. So that does not add any time to campaigning, because you cannot campaign. You can collect signatures once after you filed your DSD-9 with the city clerk. You can start trying to work on those 100 signatures, but you cannot spend money, you cannot take money until you have been, and that's in Chapter 106. That's part of the campaign law that's in the book. Once you've been qualified as a candidate. So that same period of time, once they've been qualified, the day they're qualified, they can start ordering their signs, they can do whatever they want to do as a candidate. We can't stop that. But just having a packet of election laws and things like that available before qualifying period, that doesn't have anything to do with campaigning. It's
I
just-
respect your
Yes,
thoughts.
ma'am.
I do respect your thoughts, City Clerk. I just do not agree with them. And I don't think that that really is sometimes, and I think that when you have those petition cards and you go out and you try and feel of, oh, well, I'm going to see if I'm really going to be viable in this campaign. I mean, people do that. I've seen it happen. I mean, myself, I ran just my own little certain self, but I've seen it, and I don't think it's helpful I don't think it's helpful. So I respect your feelings, but I just don't agree with them at all, and I think that things do happen. So thank you, though, but I appreciate it.
Yes, 'cause I don't have to have that language in there, but if you'd like to come by and pick up a packet and me go over the election laws or whatever, I'm happy to assist before anybody gets started. Okay? Some people don't show up to the day before.
I actually agree with Matt, but I think it needs to be, the initial idea when we started, when you guys put this charter commission together, was we were going to initially clean up the language and clean up some of the stuff in the charter that needed to be done. Guys, I think it's hilarious that you all are talking about voter fatigue when this is the group that approved 21 items on the last 2 elections. And none of them, not none of them, the majority of them weren't mission critical, okay? I always brought that up. I mean, before I was on this board, are these amendments mission critical? Remember, your electorate, for the most part, is going to vote yes to most of the things you put on a ballot because, well, they elected you into this office in order to approve these things. We went way overboard, but I completely, let me state this again. I completely disagree about creating a file for charter amendments and then looking at them when we get to them. If something is mission critical, we need to address it and we need to put it on the ballot. But you're right. The voter fatigue right now, people don't even look. They just check yes. So anything you want to get done right now, let's just do it because nobody's even going to look anymore because they're so sick of reading about these darn things. Okay? So, but remember, and Commissioner Weinstein, I respect your opinion. This is our election official over here. So just as we respect Matt's opinion as our attorney for the day, okay, we should be listening to what Clara is saying and say, okay, I can see the point there. She is our elections official, so we need to be taking that seriously. So let's not make this a personal issue, but no files. If we see something we need changed, let's change it. Let's stop with the 10 and 11 and all of this thing. I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy. But you guys this board caused the voter fatigue that you're complaining about right now. Okay? So let's keep moving forward. Let's keep the business at hand. I don't agree with the new term stuff. I mean, some Yahoo can come up with a clever slogan like I dig Doug and get up here and then you're stuck with them for 4 years. 2 years is fine. Okay, we can keep moving them over and that's great. And it gets more people involved and I like that part. I think that keeps it competitive. As far as the qualifying period, hey, Clara, I think I understand what you're saying. They can come and pick up the package up to a certain time, but they can't really begin their campaigning until that period starts, right? So they can come in November and pick up their package to kind of see what they're getting into and test the word. I don't know. I really don't have much of a problem with that because I don't think we're doing any harm to the civic responsibility that we have. But if we put none on here, I'm good too, because I think we need a break anyway. But if Clara really feels strongly about it. Yeah, as soon as you say that, now you know what's happening next election just because you did it.
It won't happen, I know.
The floor is open for public comment.
Robert Preston, 425 South Bayshore Drive, Madeira Beach. This is a question for the attorney. In the runoff election type thing, if a city does not have some way to resolve that, has the state determined how it is resolved?
I'm going to give you a very legal answer. The state has a process in place. However, with the law ever changing, I'd have to look into it and get back to you. In regards to, you don't want to be a city, put it this way, you don't want to be a city that is in a runoff without procedures, right? So it's good to have things there. Now, how you handle a runoff election and what you exactly do doesn't have to be as detailed as what the state requires, right? You could have it resolved by drawing lots or drawing names. It doesn't have to be a two-step process. However, If you don't have a process in place, that's going to be a pretty rough place to be in.
Can we resolve that part of the, that part of it with an ordinance?
I'd have to look at both and get back to you, I'm sorry. Because it depends what's in the ordinance and what's in the charter, and what I'm looking at right now is charter language that talks about a runoff, which means in order to remove it or amend it or add it, it would have to be a vote. So it wouldn't be something that would happen quickly.
Okay, so an ordinance couldn't take care of that.
Trump your charter, not that I've been aware of, no. Your charter is your.
Says it's a
that's-
runoff.
That's the top document in a city government is your charter.
Okay.
But our city could run the runoff election. It doesn't have to be the clerk. I mean,
Correct.
You know, so
Correct.
we could do a runoff election without the election board. We can
Correct.
do that, if I understand the law correctly.
That is a
Yeah,
correct statement.
we can. So, I mean, that solves the problem if we have a,
If something came up, we would have to spend the $10,000
No.
to do the runoff election. Is that
Yeah.
the way I?
But
You don't
it would
have
be
to,
internal. It would be internal if something happened.
It'd be internal, okay.
And that's only for the next election, presidential.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of the, putting more charter amendments on the budget. And believe me, I understand the voter fatigue about, every year having an election, but I can't imagine having a bad apple in there for 3 or 4 years. It would be just absolutely horrendous. If people are paying attention as a citizen and they want to run for office, it's not going to be something new. People are going to see them participating in city government. And if they're participating in city government, then people will be aware of that, whether it's pro or con, or whether they like what they say or what they don't like what they say. So I think we ought to leave that portion like it is. Thank you.
Let me respond to whether you can go to an ordinance, that there would have to be a charter amendment. Some cities have in their charter that they can refer to an ordinance on their procedures for elections. We don't have that language in ours. We just lay out a procedure in ours. But there are some cities where it just says they refer you to the city's ordinance. And it names the ordinance. And in that ordinance, you can change your procedures. It's easier because you just have 2 readings and a public hearing. But you have to have the stipulation in your charter to allow you to do that.
That's what the attorney was saying.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's youth or whatever, but we're getting a heck of a lot more out of this attorney than we do out of Ralph.
Oh, boy. Thank you.
I'd like to refer back, Doreen Moore, 13019 Boca Ciega Avenue. I'd like to refer back to our attorney's comments earlier, having sat in those many hours of charter discussions, and that, yes, you can make charter revisions, taking it to the people for a vote, that then give you, the commission, actions by ordinance. So it takes it out of the charter. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's what I'm suggesting. Yes, ma'am.
And in some cases, for procedural things, that's okay. But the basis of what we do in government is that we operate by a charter. The charter sets the rules. So if we take the meat out of the charter and give you ordinance powers, that means that in the future, it's a vote for all of those things by the commission, as opposed to things that would be determined by citizen vote. So,
And I see your point. I just, from my involvement in local government, a charter is the most general, it's like a very general, basic rule setting, right? So it goes from there to a comp plan, which you have objectives, and then you use your code of ordinances to carry out those objectives. The issue that you have, which is why so many charter amendments come up, is not that some of this information can't be in the charter, it's just restricting what can and can't be done by ordinance, such as runoff election. Yes, I mean, you can have it in your charter, but you see how difficult it is when you're trying to amend things. And I try to explain it. It's kind of big picture, and it gets more narrow as you work your way down to your ordinances, which are very specific. Kind of talking about what we're, discussing right now, which is specific as to runoffs, qualifying periods, and things like that. It's really hard to get any work done when all that stuff's in your charter.
And I heard Commissioner Andrews talk about the fact that, it's one person's opinion, but I mean, the Charter Committee did, along with our council, put in an inordinate number of hours to go over all those things. And in his opinion, some of those things were not as important as others. But the point is that we did wade through them. You all did digest them. There were things that you then said, we're not going to deal with, and because you're making that decision vote. And quite honestly, it'd have been great if we had talked about all these things last summer when we were dealing with this, but it didn't come up then. So my point is, I think that they can be bundled and we can do it at another time as opposed to doing item by item every time in an election. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak on this item? Public comment is now closed.
So we, tabling this to a time being?
I think
What are
we
we
have a
doing now?
consensus to table it, yes.
Okay.
Next item on the agenda is the RFP 19-4. Director Hatch.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. The city, we publicly advertised an RFP for mowing and lawn maintenance services for the city center complex and the athletics fields. And to clarify, before we start this conversation, we did have a question that was brought to Mr. Daniels' attention. The library is not included in this bid. The library is actually already currently being maintained by a previous lawn maintenance contract. So just for the sake of this conversation, it is the entire stretch of the city property here west of Municipal Drive with the exclusion of the library property, and then it includes the school field across the way that we utilize for our athletics. That said, we did receive 2 bids. We reviewed them. We had 2 members of the bid review committee attend, and then per our charter, went with the recommendation of the lower of the 2 bids, which is Duval Landscape Services of $18,864. Within the fiscal impact, I did outline, we currently have 1.5 FTEs budgeted within our department that are not filled. So with discussion with the finance department, the plan would be to reassign monies from that FTE somewhere in between a half and 1 full-time equivalent employee, basically just to reassign that money to, salary, benefits, everything, reassign that to this contract, and then allow the 2 recreation department employees who currently handle the landscape maintenance to focus more on program generation, revenue generation, and park beautification, of course, and any maintenance and other stuff that we have that doesn't include cutting the grass. Respectfully, they put 20 to 30 hours a week into the park and do the best they can, but we really are, they're recreation employees, not necessarily park employees. They're not lawn maintenance professionals. And having done that myself as well, I know how much of a task it can be, and some days, having it rained yesterday, it makes it that much harder today, but we've got guys within this contract that have specialized equipment specifically for this. They'd put together a plan, and per their bid, there's the review policies. We would oversee the contract, but I think we would see a much higher level of service. Plus, we have the 2 other staff members allowing to dedicate their time specifically for recreation and revenue generating and all that stuff. So I'm here to answer any questions you all have, but overall, my recommendation would be, hopeful that we can develop a contract with Duval and move forward at the next meeting.
Jay, you said it did go before the bid committee?
Yes, we had 2 members showed up for the bid committee, so we did not necessarily have a quorum, but we did defer to the charter, so recommendation of the award of the bid goes to the lowest bidder.
Yes, Jay, I have a question. With regards,
No, I think it's, I mean, he's got the money in the account, he's getting rid of 2 positions, he's putting his other people in charge of revenue generation, which is something that we desperately need. I mean, yeah, why have him out there cutting grass when we can get this done for not even the cost of 2 FT, or what is it, 1.5 FTs, yeah? Okay, full-time employee.
Yeah, ideally,
Right. What, you're getting all that done for 18 grand for a year?
just as shocked as you are.
Is it one guy with one lawnmower, he's just going to keep going? That's pretty cool.
Looking into this company, they're located in 5 larger cities throughout Florida: Jacksonville, Tampa, Fort Lauderdale. So it seems, and this is no disrespect to the company that has done it before, but seems what they're built to do. They've got a plan, they've got review sheets, they've got there's a whole outline within the packet showing how they're going to do it. So, and again, just like every other contract we have, if it's something that we don't end up being happy with, we'll know pretty early on. But I think, the expertise of a company like this versus, and this is no offense to my 2 staff members, but, their expertise over those 2 guys is, and some days when I'm out there helping them, it all depends. But I think it's...
Sounds good to me, Jay.
okay, I still
Yes, ma'am.
didn't really totally understand this. How many employees are, I think it's great to use Duval Landscape, okay? I think that was a great suggestion. I'm glad that y'all worked on that. I know that they're not, right now, I mean, I think our city hall is very sparsely landscaped anyway, so obviously that 18,000 doesn't include anything that they're going to plant. We're going to have to plant because there's really doesn't seem that much to do around, except, I mean, lots of weeds to be picked up and stuff like that. But as far as shrubbery and trimming and all that kind of stuff, I guess my question is, though, how many employees that you have right now are going to be replaced with this landscape service? Are any of them going to be gone? or
As
is
it stands
just
right
the
now,
one-
we're not replacing any staff members. We're not going to replace any staff. We're going to reassign the responsibilities of the 2 that are doing this. So right now, they're balancing park maintenance and recreation activities. So I have recreation staff do, because if you look at within our budget, with Deb serving in the role that she's currently in, the Parks Department has 0 employees. So we have recreation employees who are identified within my budget doing park work, and when they could be focused 100% on this, 100% on revenue generation, recreation activities, and then now we've got a contract that would essentially, take care of all of this, and the money would be coming from an open position that we have within the department. So we have 11 and a half FTEs. We're currently operating, I want to say at 9.5. We just hired, so it's either 9.5 or 10. So we're a full-time equivalent and a half under our operational budget. So instead of hiring maybe 1 or 2 more people to maybe help them in part-time, we could just utilize this contract and not have to hire somebody else. We're not paying benefits to these employees. We're not, and it's saving us, we would
Nobody's
actually,
getting laid off.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
that's
we're
what I'm
not getting,
asking.
sorry.
That's exactly
We're
what
not
I'm
getting rid of
asking. Thank
anybody.
you.
Yeah, that's not the plan.
Yeah, those positions that he's referring to, there's nobody in those positions right now. They're vacant.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I wanted the discussion to be here, and then this will be on the agenda on the consent agenda for November, unless something comes up and the commissioner would want to pull it at that time. But I just wanted to make sure that we could lay it all out for you so you'd have an understanding of it.
All right. Floor is open for public comment on this item. Floor is closed. I believe, do we have a consensus to go forward? Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last item is policy on recycling.
Yes, I'm going to have Deb come up and speak with you on the RFP process that we went through on the recycling. I know we addressed this, and we had the solid waste folks that were here, and kind of went through what happens to the recycled materials. I think the missing component, as we were led to believe that we're going to be looking at higher fees to pay for recycling, and as it turned out to be, and I'll let Deb report on the RFP, but that didn't end up being the case. And so basically at the end of Deb's presentation, I just need to get some feedback from you. Do you want to keep recycling, or do you want to go forward? And ultimately that would be a vote well, let me let Deb make her presentation.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. We went out to bid for the recycling, and we had 3 companies that gave us bids. They're all in the audience, if anybody has any questions. We met with a bid committee on Friday. The bid committee consisted of Chairman Pam and also George Moans. And then we had 2 staff also, myself and Megan Wepfer. She's the administrative assistant for the Marina and Public Works. So we met the charter agreement. It was the recommendation of both the staff and the bid committee to go with Waste Connections. What I gave you is kind of an Excel spreadsheet on the bids and the breakdowns, which was what was required for each of the recycling companies to give us. We actually right now have Waste Connections as our recycling contractor. Our Waste Pro, who actually technically is the lowest for per household, at the very end was disqualified because we did not get a per pickup price. We got a per month price and we got a per cart price. We currently are paying for per household $6.33. That did not go up. In fact, all the way across the board, those prices are the same as we've been paying for the last year of 2019. This contract currently ends on January 1st, 2020, and then in November will be voted on to go forward. Again, we're here to talk about recycling. That was staff's recommendation and also the bid committee. We've had a lot of conversation about recycling with the budget committee also. If anybody has any questions, I would be happy to answer them. And like I said, we've got 3 recycling experts in the audience also.
I have a question. The pickup, this street side pickup that we have right now, we've already determined that they're not really doing the recycling as we knew it years ago, okay, as we knew separating items. So if we continue on, it's still going to be that same thing, Debbie? Or are you saying that, they're going to be separating it? I mean, my whole thing is I think that the pickup was wonderful when it started off, and we had the items, the plastic put one place, the, whatever. And if they're not really recycling, what are we really paying for?
Okay, I think once the commodities for plastic and glass are better, and we're hoping that that's going to happen in the very near future, most of what I'm finding is in the education that we're contaminating a lot of our recycles that shouldn't even be in the recycle bin. They're contaminated, and they end up having to dump the load at the dump because they're contaminated. So we need to do a better job with the recycling education part so that the things that they are picking up, like plastic, we get a grant each year from the county for plastic, and we get benches and picnic tables and all kinds of things. But if it's mixed with other things, they end up throwing the whole container into the landfill as opposed to actually separating it out. So again, it's about education. And the commodities market, there's nowhere for it to go but up.
But how do we educate if we're not doing it 52 weeks of the year? I mean, because of the turnover we have and the snowbirds and everything else. I mean, you know, you educate this group this week, but a new group's in town next week. You know, I mean, that it's got to be a continuous project to.
It is.
You know, I mean, and you let down 1 week and then you've got contaminated stuff again. So,
I
mean,
personally, and to tell you the truth, it's not the snowbirds. Snowbirds all ask about recycling, and that's why almost every condo recycles. They all want to recycle, and they think it's, of course, going to, you know, the glass manufacturer and the plastic manufacturers and cardboard, when in essence, maybe somebody's throwing a pizza box right into their 96-gallon container, and it gets back to the recycling plant, and it's contaminated other things. So I believe part of the education is actually having a poster right next to where the barrels are, these 96-gallon bins are at, and just, you know, if the poster comes down, then a new poster goes up. You know, maybe in our communicator. I mean, I think there's things that we can do to help the residents.
Yeah, Deb, I agree with you. I think this is honestly a completely no-win situation for us up here. We can't stop recycling. Whether it's getting recycled properly right now or not, we will face, every environmental group will come through the door and ask for our heads, and you know, and rightfully so. I think, you know, I agree with you. I think that there is going to be a change in the marketplace, and I do think that we're going to get back to where we were before. But I think if we end this program over a couple of bucks, and if we were able, and I saw Chair Rasmussen's email about the bid. It doesn't look like we're raising any prices. Everything's going to remain the same. You know, I don't think that's something, I don't think we ought to talk about ending recycling right now. If we want to have that discussion, that's a discussion we can have, but I think it has to be in a town hall where everybody can get up here and kind of give their opinion. And I would just suggest we just go with this Waste Connections. Let's see how it goes, and let's play it and see how it develops over the next year.
You know, I'm not suggesting that we stop recycling. I'm just suggesting that we do figure out a better way to educate the people here. You know, we're going to do it like Doug said, you know, but we've got to educate the people, not to throw that pizza box in there or what, you know, what can go in there and what can't go in there. We really need to be educating the people. And I don't, is it Kurt putting out something every week? The posters? I mean, I don't know what the answer is. You know, who do we get to lead us down this path, I guess is what I'm trying to get to.
I think if I may, there's a lot of materials out there that we can utilize from the county, the Solid Waste Authority, and we can put it forward in all the channels that we have of getting back into the basic education. And by basic education, that's changed over a period of the years. As Commissioner Weinstein mentioned, you know, we used to do all the self-separation ourselves. Now we put it into one container, and just as long as it's all, you know, clean, recyclable products that are currently recycled, and if we have the posters and we do the educational program, then it should all work, just as long as all that goes into the same truck and it doesn't get contaminated either. So it is a process, and I think Commissioner Andrews hit it right on the head. I think if we can do it at the same cost, then there's probably no opportunity really to make a change at this level, and maybe have some future dialogue when we're not as busy as a commission to, you know, do a town hall and look at the overall issue down the road.
I think one of the biggest problems is the condos, and I live in a condo, and I can see when I go look at the trash, people aren't paying attention. So could the city maybe come up with some posters to give out to the condos to help educate people?
And we'll get some help with the contractor too, that we've got actually information in our lobby. There's a big recycling flyer there.
There's a flyer there, but I'd like to have a big
Right,
poster.
oh, I agree, I agree.
Mayor, I noticed on, I think it was on Treasure Island or City of St. Pete Beach, on their sanitation trucks, they're not wrapped, but they have these huge, big instructional things about recycling. And it's so easy to read, and it's simple, and it's consistent on all the trucks, and maybe that's something that we can look into when we move a little further down for education.
You know, like the mayor said, I've seen it at my condo. People they're too lazy to walk out to the dumpster to put their garbage in the dumpster, and they put it in the recycle thing, you know. So that's what I'm just saying. It's got to be education, and how do we do it?
That would help a lot. Floor is open for public comment on this item.
Robert Preston, 425 South Bayshore Drive. You know, I got kind of the elephant in the room is that the truck that they bring around, everything goes in one spot. So if something contaminated goes in from one party, it can contaminate the whole truck. So it's a no-win situation, and we're not recycling. The only way that I see a fix to recycling is where I'm used to it years ago, because it was happening 25, 30 years ago on the West Coast, is you had a glass container, you had a paper container, and you had a plastic container, and you had a garbage container. And when the truck came by, those individual things went into the different bins on that truck. And until that actually happens, I can't see any of this stuff not being contaminated, because it's hard to herd cats. It really is.
Hi, good afternoon. Tracy Meehan with Waste Pro. Thank you so much for having us here this afternoon, and we appreciate all of the review, RFP process, and the opportunity to bid on the city's recycling services. I have one point of clarification, Deb, I did attend the committee review yesterday for the RFP, and I wasn't aware that Waste Pro was disqualified. We did put in a price per pickup. Our price per pickup is listed per cart and not per pickup, as in one multifamily unit could have 4 carts at X rate. Our price was listed as $3.54, I believe, per cart per pickup. But at any rate, again, we appreciate the opportunity to bid on these services and the work the staff has done to get this out here. I'm here today to respectfully request that the city take a moment to review the RFP contents, the process, and the subsequent selection of the recommendation for the contractor. On page 3 of the RFP document, it does state the methodology for the selection of the awardee. This is stated to be the most responsive and responsible company offering the most competitive pricing. It also states that the contract will be all-inclusive on an annual basis. After a review from our team, we believe that the Waste Pro proposal is the most cost-effective as a whole to the city and its residents. When calculated per the RFP specifications, the current invoicing, and approximating the service levels that are being provided at the multifamily units as well as the residential in the city, we find our proposal to be approximately $5,500 more competitive annually than that of the contractor that is currently being recommended. Thank you again for your time and consideration, and have a great day.
Anybody else wish to speak?
Sorry. No, just simply Ian Boyle, Waste Connections. Thank you for the big committee and the city's process. We look forward to working with the city for several years to come. That's pretty much it.
Floor, anybody else wish to speak? Floor is not closed. I think we have a consensus.
The key thing was just the policy issue, and I think you have a consensus on that, and the issue of the actual bid will be at the meeting on November the 12th.
Thank you. Before we adjourn, Commissioner Weinstein.
Thanks,
would
okay.
like to
I
say
just
a
had
few
three
words.
announcements. One was that I attended the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Commission on October the 14th, and it was a very interesting meeting. We are a full-fledged member in the city of Madeira Beach, and I'm going to give the city manager for his distribution at some later point, at some future time. There is going to be a Tampa Bay Regional Resiliency Coalition that will be held in January of 2020. I know that's a couple months away, but it's never too early to plan and to look at the different items. And because it's going to be a 3-day program bringing in lots and lots of different people on resiliency and recovery to the beaches, to all the communities that are part of the Tampa Bay Regional Planning. That doesn't include just Pinellas, Hillsborough, Hernando, Manatee, Pasco. So I know that you'll disseminate that information to all of us. And I just wanted to remind everybody that Thursday, I have that listening tour at the library. The library has extended their facilities again from 2 to 4. So the public certainly is eligible to attend. And yesterday we had an interesting meeting in City Hall that I attended. I didn't know if any of y'all were here. I don't think that you were, but it was presented by Steve Lewis, and it was on Florida's public records laws, and it was pretty interesting information, and you probably have that information to distribute to the rest of them. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, just for a couple minutes, Walt wanted to just give you a quick update on the financial status.
Madam Mayor and Commissioners, this is related mostly toward the resurfacing and the undergrounding from a fiscal information standpoint for you. Just to give you information, the resurfacing and undergrounding should pretty much come to a close toward the end of November. The resurfacing, we have remaining payments of a little over $400,000 left or remaining, and then the undergrounding, there's about $68,000 that's left as well. The undergrounding will pretty much stop at 144th, and then stop, and then basically phase 3 or penny 4 would be needed to do the rest, and we're hoping to get more information about that toward the end of the calendar year. Good news, though, we have received $1,420,726 from the county, which reimburses us for work done on the undergrounding for utilities. And that pretty much ends or completes the money that we would get from them as a reimbursement. Now, I don't know if the board remembers this. At this time last year, we were looking at a balloon payment on that Series 2014 bond, which was initially for the undergrounding utilities. It was $1.2 million, and I indicated, or we suggested, along with our financial advisor, to refund that. And we refunded it, and that's now the 2014 series went away, and we have that new bond for $1.2 million, which is the Series 2018. Now that we have that 1.4 from the county, the remaining payments that we have for that 1.2 million is $985,000 over the next 3 years. And I talked to the city manager that it might be good if we, during this year, with any direction from the board, that we could pay that off. Or we could make 2 payments this year and then a final payment next year. If we paid the whole thing off, we would probably be saving $40,000 in interest from this point on. Also, if we paid it off, we would have at least, these payments have been averaging $330,000. We would have that much more in next year's 2020 budget to allocate maybe to stormwater or any other needs that the city felt. But it's good news, and I'm relieved that we do have that $1.4 million reimbursement from the county. Some of the other, we're getting set and financed to undergo our audit. Our auditor is coming next week, and also in preparation for the CAFR. Couple of good news things of, I did come to you, and we had about 7 emergency items last year during FY 2019 that took everybody by surprise, and were kind of costly. And I will be coming to you in November with a budget cleanup. But there is some good news in the general fund that I just want to report to you. For Hurricane Irma, we did receive from FEMA $209,000 for submissions of reimbursement that we did submit to FEMA. So within the last part of this year, we did receive that $209,000. So that definitely is good news. Another good news is our interest earnings in the general fund initially budgeted $45,000. That grew over the budget to $135,877. So clearly that was good news as well. Also, in addition to the timely reimbursements that the county gave us for the underground utilities, we'd also been getting on the resurfacing for FDOT and that relationship that we have with them. The deal is that we have to make the payments to AJAX and CPWG, and then we have to go to FDOT to seek reimbursement. The reimbursements have been quicker than I originally anticipated, and we almost have $1 million back from them already that was submitted for reimbursement. So also the parking came in for the general fund, not including the amount in the cash reserve that was set aside, but that grew to $1,764,514, which exceeded the budget by $148,000. So that is good news as well. And also, speaking of interest earnings, the $15 million that we got in July, we already made $78,576 on that money, that $15 million. We are looking at our first interest payment in November of $141,000, and clearly the way it's going now, we're going to be very close to meeting that interest payment just by the money that we're earning. So I just wanted to display some of those good news in preparation for our audit. And, I know we had some challenges last year, but I think some good things happened too.
Thank you, Director Pierce. It's good to hear some good news. And there being no further business, we are adjourned at 4:13.